Welcome back to another episode of Speak for Yourself. I am Dewan Dandridge, the CEO of Black Leaders Detroit, and I am here with Ken Elkins, our COO. Unfortunately, we still haven't found anybody willing to take his spot on his podcast or
can't
just
replace me, brother. Can't replace me. I'm irreplaceable. Irreplaceable.
No, but it's a pleasure to be rocking with them again in 2023, and we want to start the year off right. So we have none other than Danielle North, and we will allow her to introduce herself. We know her as amazing wife, mother, community leader, amongst other things. But how do you introduce yourself, Danielle? How do you like to be introduced?
Oh man, thank you so much for that. I mean, that's it. I mean, those pieces that you spoke to first, I mean, that's at the core of it all. Being a wife, being a mother, that's my inspiration, and being a community leader, someone that really has the mantle to actually uphold an example and be a support to others. So I appreciate that. I am also someone who really likes to manifest my dreams. I call it a blessing and a challenge, not a blessing and a curse. So I have launched a number of businesses that I run, both nonprofit and for-profit. Kids Kingdom, the first indoor playground in the city of Detroit, also a licensed child care center. And I'm currently running Degree Forward, which I founded in 21. It is a college completion program for working professionals and adults. And I have a women's leadership network, Detroit Women's Leadership Network. We have over 11,000 women on our Facebook platform, and we've been going strong since 2014. So that's just a quick snapshot, but we'll talk more about what I'm moving into, which is a culmination of all those things at Dream Studio Detroit.
Wow.
Go ahead, don't hesitate.
I mean, hey, first you're busy though. Like you really,
sure, right?
And I think you just spoke at the Detroit Policy Conference, didn't
Yes.
you?
Yeah, that was a blessing and a great opportunity, just like today, the wonderful prayer breakfast that we had. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to close out and speak. Speaking at the Detroit Policy Conference, I mean, it was a great shift and pivotal move for me, where I am right now and where my career has taken me. When we're given the opportunity and we're given a platform, it cannot be business as usual. You can't just say, oh, hey, they want me at the Detroit Policy Conference or they want me to speak at this prayer breakfast. You have to do everything with intentionality.
Yeah.
Don't squander your opportunity. So I knew I had 15 minutes that I was going to be on that stage. So I was up the prior night because I'm like, Lord, you need to tell me what I need to say. And I also need to use this as an opportunity to elevate the narrative, to ensure that the word is getting out there about the support that we have in the entrepreneurial community. I shouted out Black Leaders Detroit. That was intentional. I shouted out Metro Detroit Black Business Alliance. I shouted out Detroit Means Business, Small Business Owner Advocates. And guess what? When someone asks you a question, when you're on a stage, you can be prepared to answer their question, but also say what you want to be said.
No doubt.
So
no doubt.
I already had in my mind with intent and purpose, I know who I'm going to shout out. I know what platform of which I want to promote, which is this narrative around how we're supporting entrepreneurs in the city of Detroit.
Okay.
There's so much out here. It's called technical assistance.
Technical assistance,
and
which is a very confusing word, by the way.
It is very confusing, and I want to dismantle it.
Yeah, okay.
And I am proposing a different term, and I proposed that term on the stage at the Detroit Policy Conference, which is tangible support. We need to call it tangible support because that clearly articulates both what the foundations, what corporations, what nonprofits are actually trying to do for small businesses, provide them tangible support. And you, me, everybody in this room can understand what tangible support is. Give me something that I can...
Something of value that I need.
Yes, exactly. And so you understand that sounds authentic, that sounds understandable, that sounds like I can trust that. And then you begin to dig more into that. And so I don't want to dismantle the existing organizations, but I do want to have a new term that we're putting into the ecosystem, and then we are actually using that to uplift and help the people, the real people, understand.
Because we're already paternalistic, right?
Yeah.
And it says service providers, nonprofits, foundations, we come sometimes assuming we know more about what you need than you do.
That's right.
And I know that, like, I've been on both sides of this, right? I've been an entrepreneur that didn't know some of the things that I needed to know, right? So there's room for that. But I think that there's something about the way we use terminology and then the way we, put stumbling blocks in there, and it looks like it's something that we're giving you to help you, and it's supposed to be a stool, but it ends up being a hurdle and an extra obstacle, right? So, like, can you talk a little bit about like how it feels like we're being paternalistic as service providers sometimes from your seat?
Yeah, from my seat, it feels like you're telling an entrepreneur, I need to fix you first. Let me fix you. You're broken. You don't know how to do all of this stuff. That's why you're coming here asking for help. Yeah. When in fact, many of our entrepreneurs are capable. We have jumped over hurdles, jumped through hoops, figured out stuff. I was just talking to someone on yesterday where I said this time with my building now, I have full-blown architectural plans, real expensive stuff, right? But when I did my first space, I told her, I said, it is so crazy. I can't tell you right now how I did it, but I did it. I got an app, and I was able to make a floor plan and do that because the city will accept different variations if you just show what you're trying to do. And I built that thing out. I always tell people, like, I'm an architect, I'm this, I'm that. When I have my kids, the doctors will ask me, are you a doctor? My husband will be like, she's a doctor, she's a lawyer. Because we know how to figure it out. We know how to figure it out. But guess what? Sometimes we get tired of trying to figure it out, or we need some help, and we're at that roadblock. And don't get it twisted. When you catch me at that roadblock, you think I don't know anything. Yes, I need help, but I don't need what is technical assistance, or I don't need to go through your little program or sit in this class. Give me some tangible support. Get an accountant over here with me right now so I can show them my books and we can walk through the books. Give me the money. Let's do that. Don't put me in a little class.
For 6 or 7 months.
No, that's not that. For what? Because guess what? By that time, I've missed the deadline for these people to submit the paperwork. I need somebody to clean up my books right now. Today, and I need to get it submitted so I can submit this grant. Don't play games. So it makes you feel like, number one, you're not educated. You don't know what you're doing or where you are, and then it feels like you're jumping through hurdles and playing games. And
the interesting thing about that, right, is I've been in this nonprofit space long enough, and in service providers like Black Leads Detroit, where we're constantly fixing stuff.
That's right.
Right? So we're constantly looking to improve stuff. So what does that mean? Does that mean we don't have our stuff together? No. You know what I mean? It just means that we can tighten things up and do things a little bit better. But it seems like we talk about it internally as an organization one way, and we use prettier language, right? But when we're talking about it externally to someone that needs our services, we're using that paternalistic language, right? So we have to fix that.
It's always using a term that I've always noticed, an organization or business doesn't have the capacity. And I always confuse them, like, the capacity, what does that even mean, the capacity, right? Which I always just found cold, for some other reasons. Maybe it was they were too black, or, maybe because of the stage it was always some other reason versus the capacity, right? And then trying to watch organizations provide them that capacity, they didn't do a very good job of it anyways. So as you mentioned, it just feels like as organizations trying to be paternalistic and tell entrepreneurs and tell businesses who they are and what they need when those businesses know that for themselves. So.
That's right.
So we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to hear you talk a little bit about the location of your latest venture, and also talk about how black the team is over there.
All right.
Blackity
That's
black.
Right.
So, Jana K is one of the premier vendors at this year's downtown Detroit holiday market at 1 Cadillac Square. The shop offers luxurious charcuterie boards and boxes filled with exceptional ingredients intended to engage with the senses, alongside a collection of glassware and home accessories. The market runs now until January 1st, open Wednesday, Thursdays, and Sundays, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Friday and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. What started as an experience for guests during a backyard quarantine-style birthday party morphed into the charcuterie brand. Jana K. The brand has grown exponentially since its inception, largely due to its curated selection and pairing of fruit, cheeses, meats, and wines. Each board is an experience of an array of cultivated pairings that have been curated to provide tasteful, beautiful, and opulent delights. Visit our website at janak.com or our IG page at JK Charcuterie. When you think of charcuterie, think of Jana K.
Yeah, so we're back again with Danielle North. Can you talk a little bit about like what went into choosing the location, as well as the contractors that you use as it relates to your architectures, the carpenters, and everybody else that you're using?
Wait, is this for Kids Kingdom?
This is for Dream Studio Detroit, but I can give a little more insight because it is Kids Kingdom as well.
So can you tell us first you go into that, Duane, what both of those businesses are?
Yeah.
Like, let us know what both of those are.
Absolutely. So Kids Kingdom is my first brick and mortar business. I really kind of got into entrepreneurship without even fully understanding what entrepreneurship was, but I was a consultant first, and I started a property management business back in 2008 was when I first created my first LLC. So started managing properties and doing
time.
that. Yeah. Well, it must have been, it was 2007 then.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was before, it was a year before. In any case, kind of came into entrepreneurship from that standpoint. But back in 2011, I was an executive at Detroit Public Schools, making a great impact, doing great work, wonderful salary, wonderful benefits, all of that, but not feeling like I was making the impact that I wanted to make, and also not feeling authentic in what we were doing at that time for kids. And so for me, that wasn't enough. It has never been enough if the mission and passion isn't behind it. And so I ultimately gave my 3 weeks notice and I came into full-blown entrepreneurship. But prior to that, I was building up my business and preparing to have my education consulting firm. So I was doing that work. And then I said, you know what? I have an opportunity right now with these contracts and the funds that I have coming in lump sum to actually start a brick and mortar business. And it was kind of a no-brainer at the time in terms of what I wanted to start, because I had children and my oldest son at the time was 6. And he was asking me to go to an indoor playground, and we were all the way downtown. I said, I promised him I was going to take him somewhere to bounce around or whatever. And I said, well, let me just double check. Because the nearest one was in Livonia, but we were downtown. I said, let me double check and make sure there isn't one in Detroit.
Right.
In Detroit, right? On the way. Right. I Google searched, lo and behold, and I said, there isn't one of these, not one, in the actual city of Detroit. And I was kind of thinking there was a couple that had started one in the suburbs, black woman and her husband, an interracial couple. They had started one in the suburbs. And so I knew that she had started one. And I was just like, man, this sounds like this is what I need to be doing, because it'll be for my kids. I can be there with my kids, and it will be right here in my community. We were living in North Rosedale Park at the time. And I said, I'm going to open up an indoor playground right here in North Rosedale Park. I wrote my business plan in January of 2016, and we opened May. Memorial Weekend 2016 as the first and only indoor playground in the city of Detroit.
Nice. Wow.
And so they exist. I didn't create the first one, but I opened the first one in the city. And we were focused on education and recreation from the very beginning. How can we have a space where it's designed for kids and families that's clean and safe and fun right in the city for them to have fun?
Okay. So how did you fund that? Was that personal funds?
It was. It was my 401k. It was my savings. And it was the money. Well, it wasn't my savings yet. Okay. It was the money from my contracts. But similarly, like what we talked about earlier, like you were saying, when you run into that, we opened up and people weren't coming in there, and I was like, oh, hold on, where are the people? We gotta keep things going. So you go through different things along the way, right? I end up pulling down my 401k, pulling from my savings and things like that to keep it keep it going and keep it open. I ultimately went out and got some additional funds because I didn't want to take out loans. Because I didn't understand. I was just like, I don't want to be in debt. And, you know, so I did Kiva, the 0% interest loan. That was the first loan I did.
Okay.
And then I did Prosper Us. And I wasn't a typical candidate. Because they usually want you to have been declined by things, or you know, have something. Your credit has to be really low, things like that. That actually wasn't my situation, but I was still able to borrow through them. So in any case, got through that, and it has just grown.
Okay.
It has grown and grown and grown. By the end of the next year, I added on a licensed child care center into the same space because people were saying, can I leave my kid here? And I was like, no. You come in here with them and you play with them. And I was like, are these people crazy? Why they want to leave their kids with me? And then it clicked. Oh, there's a need. Yeah. There's an actual need, and they see this as a safe space. They trust me. They trust my staff. And they were like, oh, I want to, keep my child here. So we add that component because the community asked for it. It was never in my business plan.
Okay.
Wow. It was never in my business plan.
Wow. There's a necessity. It came out of necessity, right?
The other necessity
of the community.
The other necessity was the summer camp. So I told you we opened up, and I'm like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to get the people from? Looked up, studied, looked into what I could do. So we did a summer camp. That first year we had our first summer camp because I said that's the way I can get some ongoing, kind of revenue and keep the kids in here.
Get an introduction to it, right?
Yeah.
You can turn a summer camp student potentially into somebody that's coming there for after school and whatnot, right?
Precisely.
It's interesting.
I hate interruptions. Did Dwan bring you a juice?
I can't tell that you hate.
No.
Did Dwan bring you a juice?
You seem like
he
you
did
love
not. I'm over here thirsty.
I just saw him drink this juice, and
I'm over here thirsty.
really thirsty.
I'm thirsty. I'm looking at it.
And he's the only one that got a juice.
And I need a boost.
They both had breakfast.
You had something, but you had us up early. We're going to need more energy to get through the rest of the day.
I'm not even going to tell y'all about Danielle, the conversation we had in Rosa yesterday when her and Charity was like, you getting us up way too early. I was like, well, look, I can talk to God tonight and tell him that y'all don't want to be bothered with me. You know what I'm saying? Before 8 o'clock on a weekday. You know what I'm saying?
What we were trying to explain to Dewan is that God moves all through the day.
Right.
He's the same in the morning,
that's not what it said.
afternoon,
That's not what it said.
Yesterday, today,
forever. Exactly. So forever in a cycle of 24 hours, he's the same.
Yeah.
But he wanted to get us up early.
Get us up early. I'm just sitting there thirsty. I saw him drink that juice.
Yeah, you got saliva built in.
I got reservoir.
That is scandalous. See how you do it?
Right.
I'm sorry. I asked you a question. I'm so sorry, brother.
Now he don't forgot.
Made me lose my train of thought. You know what I mean?
I'm just parched over here.
Yeah, I know you're trying to get the evolution of that. Yeah.
No, so I'm thinking about the location, right? Where you're at, but also thinking about where you're transitioning to, and you move to a part of the city that I don't see a lot of development happening. I don't see a lot of investment.
Yeah.
So talk to a little bit about the process of choosing location, but also the people that are working with you to bring it to fruition.
Yeah, it's really powerful because I was looking back and I was like, man, I did this before. And I wasn't thinking about it because you go through it, you do it, and you keep it moving. But when I came to the plaza that I'm in right now, it was pretty much vacant. There was a Dollar General, there was a Chinese restaurant, nail shop, and all of the other spaces were vacant. My space used to be a shoe store. So I went in, it was cinder block in there, and I said, with 18 feet wide, 150 feet deep. It's over a little over 2,500 square feet. And so I went in and I transformed that space where it wouldn't have been ideal to bring an indoor playground and childcare center to that plaza. It was because it was in my community and it made the most sense with the parking to be there because that was my community. This is where it's going to be. I'm not going anywhere else. Right. So I used the demographic information that Mount Rosedale Development Corporation had, and I was the test. I live here. I know I'm a parent, etc. Right? So now in moving into the new space, we're at Plymouth and Evergreen. I wanted so badly to be on that Grand River thoroughfare. I have been asking about building since 2018, quite honestly, but I didn't want to put myself in a place where got this building, I got that building, which is still the scenario, but not too early on. And so I had been looking around and I was just staying hopeful. Like, I hope I find something with the right specifications. But ultimately, it took me about 11 months to find my building. I was searching. I was getting bid out by cash offers. I was getting declined. And I even had a purchase agreement with one building. We were going down the path, and then they end up getting a cash offer after the fact and accepting that after you have a certain amount of time, depending on what your purchase agreement states, before either party can back out.
So you actually was in the purchase agreement.
I absolutely was.
And they pulled out.
Yep, they had
cash offer.
Yes, they did, and they.
Excuse me for a moment.
Take that energy, take that sip some tea for real.
Right,
That's some tea for real. On that note, energy song.
Right.
You can at least have some for us.
You can at least have some for us. Scandalous.
Yeah. So I can't really speak to that business, but it looks nice.
Right.
It's great. Trust me.
We trust you. We trust you.
You don't have to.
That's all we can do. That's all we can do.
That's all we do.
We don't know.
I'll make sure we have something for you next time.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I know if I can.
Right.
See?
So in choosing this location, ultimately this space fit the specifications and requirements of what I was looking for, even though it was a furniture store. It was a furniture store.
How many square feet?
10,000 square feet on the main floor, 1,400 square feet on the mezzanine.
Wow.
Okay.
And it's about 6 minutes tops away from my current space, even though I'm in a
Nice.
different community.
Oh,
Nice.
Okay.
It's Plymouth and Evergreen. You can go up. And so I was thinking about my parents. I was thinking about the people who we serve. I wasn't going to, even the search was difficult. I wasn't going to say, well, let me see what they got on the east side. Or let me go see what they have on 7 Mile and Livernois, because it's really out of the scope of where I believe, I'm really supposed to have an impact. And so that's how I ended up there. I wasn't specifically looking over there, but I wasn't deterred either. I can see vision. I can see the vision with it being a furniture store. When I walked in there was a woman who worked there. And, you used to be kind of secretive when you were looking for something. The business was still open. The furniture store was open when I first went.
Okay.
And the next time, walking through, she kind of started picking up what I was putting down or whatever. But she ended up saying, she was a black woman, and she said, wow. She began to speak over my life. She said, I'm going to pray for you. She said, this is amazing. She said, I cannot believe you are buying this building. The prior owner is he's an Arab man. And so she was just
this
like,
lady in the furniture store?
Yes, who worked there.
Okay.
Yes, she was just... And over my career and even in my current space, that has been the continuous theme. Like, oh, you own this?
Yeah.
Like, this is yours? So more than anything, like, we think we're doing one thing, but there's a deeper purpose within it. Our people need to see us thriving. They need to see, even if they don't know what's happening behind the scenes, they think you're thriving.
Right.
They see, oh, you own this? Because I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone. We didn't even own our own home. When I was growing up, I used to ride around. We used to have to pay for the printouts. This is way back. My dad would go to the real estate company. The printouts for the MLS, we used to have to pay for those, and he would pay to get the printout. We would ride around and look for houses, and we never bought a home. My dad owns a home. He's owned his own home for years now, but growing up, we did not. And so, for me to now be a black woman, first generation homeowner. My grandmother owned homes, but not my parents, and she owned multiple homes, and on the same block. But my parents, they weren't able to actualize that while we were growing up. So now to have owned 4 residential homes and a building, I don't know anybody until now being an adult and talking to all of these successful black entrepreneurs who own buildings. I'm like, y'all own buildings?
You're a whole developer.
I am a developer.
And like we said earlier, and you just alluded to, right? If you see it, you can be it. Right? So how important it is to be able to emulate that and show other entrepreneurs, other young folks coming up, but even other entrepreneurs saying, wow, this is possible.
Yes.
I can do this. So.
And my current landlord, he's a Maltese man. He went online in, I forget what year it was, because it was right before, I guess, I came over there in 2016. Might have been 2015. He went online from wherever he was in Europe and clicked the button and bought that building.
And bought the building from Europe.
And bought that building.
And it's
you hear me?
From Europe.
You hear me?
Another whole community.
And went and clicked the button.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's like having a background in construction and then also being a resident of Detroit. And one of the things that I see, especially happening in development, as we saw, the market go to some crazy highs and lows.
Yeah.
As you talk about location and not being deterred, one of the things that I hear, and I see us say, when we see certain neighborhoods, like we associate them with the history of that neighborhood that we're all too familiar with, right? But it's like we don't tell ourselves a complete story of the history either.
Yes.
Right? We only talk about the negative parts that we reminded of in that neighborhood. We don't talk about the positive parts. And then I see people that didn't grow up there come and they see that land like settlers.
That's right.
Right?
Oh, what?
Remember when they see it like settlers saw occupied land and they're like, oh, this is great.
This is the land of
and
opportunity.
they end up dreaming and having all types of vision.
Yeah.
Right? When we associate it with pain and we want to get far away from it.
Yeah.
But then we're concerned about like how
it's two sides to that.
spaces become gentrified.
Yeah,
it's
two sides to that coin too.
It's
It's
way
very
more nuanced,
difficult.
right?
And my grandmother, when I was growing up, I used to hear her. The old folks, they would say, and I didn't know what they were talking about. I said, what are they talking about? My grandma used to say all the time. She said, these white people are coming. And this was way before any kind of gentrification started in the city. She would be like, they're coming, they want to buy this land, they want to buy these houses. I'd be looking like, when did
I don't see them.
Oh my gosh, but you are exactly right in terms of people seeing opportunity. But these are the residual effects of slavery, the residual effects of Jim Crow, the residual effects of us not having wealth generation. Typically, homes are the only assets that Black folks have. And so when you have an opportunity, when the market increases and you see the opportunity, which I did, and this happened to me, my house doubled in value. Do you hear me when I'm telling you? My house on Breton Drive in North Rosedale Park doubled from the value that I purchased it. And I sold that home. Okay. But at that time, we weren't ready to leave the city. So we sold and we purchased another home around the corner that was still in North Rosedale Park. But a lot of times people cannot, our people, we don't have that legacy of wealth where you can just sit on an investment like that and just stay when you have the opportunity to sell. And then conversely, we can't even see the land of opportunity a lot of times because we are trying every day with what's right in front of us. See, these folks that you're talking about have an opportunity to explore and dream because they said otherwise. So now you can invest.
And it's like you're positioned to be able to take a chance. So to speak.
You're positioned to take a chance.
We don't feel like
risk.
we can take those type of chances.
That's right.
You know
I take calculated risks. You know what I'm saying? I'm only gonna get myself in so much trouble with what I'm doing. And my husband, because he's not an entrepreneur. He hates the word serial entrepreneur. But I've never done anything to jeopardize our family. But still, he's watching idly by. He's watching the accounts when I'm like, okay, well, I got to spend a little bit of our money to do this. So I'm like, I promise you I'm going to get it back.
You might be the only entrepreneur I know that haven't done anything to jeopardize your family or put y'all in a funky spot. With some of your risks. I don't know how my wife stays.
She stays with you.
With me coming up with ideas and like, okay, I'm about to pivot and do this. You know what I mean? And she holds it down. But I think she's glad with where we are now.
And that's the power of agreement and working together. It's good that we're both not like that because he holds it down. He goes to work every day. That's what he wants to do. He wants to manage the kids at the school and hold it down. We got our insurance with him, and he's got that stability. And sometimes I want him to be more like me, but we're the healthy. Like it's a healthy balance. It's a healthy mix. He makes me pay attention. Sometimes when I don't even want to, he's like, what you going? I'll be like, look, have I ever left us out?
I can't ask that question.
Yeah, right. You can't ask that question. You're like, well, yeah, you have. I can't trust you.
Remember
that time?
Remember 2003?
I definitely on the list. I wouldn't even dare ask that question. But we're gonna do another quick commercial break. We come back from that.
Who's sponsoring this
one? While that break, I'm gonna grab Danielle some water.
Thank you. We're gonna leave canned parts.
And maybe one of us will say can't swallow.
We'll be right back.
Elizabeth Freeman, aka Mom Bet, was enslaved for decades. So she was an enslaved woman at the Sheffield home, in which she was assaulted by her enslaver, unfortunately. She then secured one of the state's most prominent lawyers to bring a freedom suit against the Sheffields, right? So she didn't have any money, but the lawyer convinced the jury to set her free under the Commonwealth's guarantee of equality for all, and Mumbet was then free. And this was in 1781. Needless to say, after she gained her freedom, she then worked for that lawyer to kind of pay off her debt, even though the lawyer didn't ask based on history accounts. But she worked for the lawyer and got paid, and Mumbet eventually went on, made enough money as a housekeeper, and bought her first home. And it's just like a heartfelt story to me because unfortunately she was assaulted, then got justice, and then did enough to procure wealth. Because wealth is anything that's tangible, transferable, and useful. So having a home is huge, especially in our community, because we know what it's like for some of our ancestors to not even have a place to lay their head, or the conditions in which, unfortunately, a lot of people who look like us had to go through during enslavement. So when I learned of Mumbet's story, it really touched my heart, and that's our trivia entry for today.
So welcome back. We were getting ready to talk a little bit about the contractors that you're using that are working with you to make the dream become a reality.
That's right. So the new building is at Plymouth and Evergreen. And one of the other terms that I like to use is it's not about the location, it's about creating a destination. Mm-hmm. And so I don't care what has happened there before. God sent me there. What's getting ready to happen is going to be a destination that people are going to be drawn to.
Love it.
And so at Dream Studio Detroit, I have been focused and intent to the best of my ability, and so far I've been successful with hiring all black contractors for the work. Black roofer, they're African, but African roofer, African HVAC contractor, and then black men who have a black architect.
Nice.
I have Roland Day is my architect. I have black electrical contractor. That is Martin Paris with Power Lighting. Amazing.
Shout out Power Lighting.
Yeah, shout out to Power Lighting. I also have, and shout out to Roland Day. He's with John Tago and Associates, my architect. Shout out to Mr. White's Plumbing, Kevin White. He is these are master. Martin Paris is a master electrician. Okay. Mr. Kevin White is a master plumber of Mr. White's Plumbing, and I have Brandon Maxwell, who I went to middle school with. He is he's my carpenter. He is doing my framing and doing the build out over there. So these are all black men. In fact, black contractors who are getting us off on strong footing. And so that money is going into the hands of black people.
Nice.
Great job.
Activated yet?
It's not activated yet, so we're still in construction. And what's going to happen at Dream Studio Detroit is this is a community complex focused on multi-generational impact and equitable resources. So you can come in as a 1-year-old or you can come in as an 80-year-old, and you're going to have support. You're going to have resources for dream fulfillment. Okay. And so that means So Kids Kingdom has its own space. So this was a furniture store, but I have, I'm breaking it out into individual suites within it, and it's going to have each of my entities. So to the right, the first space right off of Vaughn, that's Kids Kingdom. That's the child care center occupying over 2,000 square feet. Then next to that, you have Biz Kids City, which is my youth entrepreneurship summer camp that is being actualized into a space with many centers that are focused on career development and entrepreneurship. So we have corporate sponsors and we have others who are coming on board that I'm working on. I'm working with my fundraising, but we have Huntington Bank at the table already. So imagine with Huntington Bank, you're going to have a mini banking center where the kids can come in, and we'll have guest speakers and we'll have career day, which we do that already, but we don't have the mini centers for it. And you can still do birthday parties and things like that, but it is really going to take that career and entrepreneurship exposure to a year-round program and take it to the next level.
Nice.
And a gaming lounge in the back. And I'm looking for a coding partner so that our kids can, not only our teens, so now this elevates it, and the space is large enough for adults. Okay. So a lot of times mommy and daddy want to say, oh, Johnny needs some programs, he needs it, but the parents need it and want it too. So now you can have an integration of not only in that space, but then when you move on to the next space, then you have Dream Studio, which is focused on supporting entrepreneurs with that tangible support, connecting them with places like Black Leaders Detroit, connecting them with Metro Detroit Black Business Alliance, connecting them to NEI, all of these business service organizations that might not seem attainable to them, but now they can access it right in the community.
I love that, right? I love that, being able to like take the relationships that you've already like cultivated and offer them to others. What I hear you talking about, one of the things that I was talking about when we were going around and doing a stump speech for BLD is oftentimes we, being Black people or any people from a community that they're serving in, but Black people is, you know, what I'm an expert on, our lived experience, right? We see the need and then we create a thing to meet the need. So as I just hear you talk about like your journey and where you started and creating the first Kids Kingdom to like where you're going now, you're just identifying needs and like, you know, let's just bring the solution.
And that's a blessing and a challenge. Right?
Of course,
because
of course.
I don't call it a curse, but the challenge is that is at the core of who I am. With the Women's Network, which will also be in there on the mezzanine suite.
Okay.
It's like I knew I was pregnant with my middle son, and I had read Lean In, and a lot of folks saw that book as elitist, which it is, because we're not going to be in the spaces that Sheryl Sandberg was in. Okay. And she said some things in there that spoke to her elitism. Oh, I can have my kid in my office and that kind of thing. But meanwhile, at the same time, she was telling her staff that they couldn't, you know, do these things, right? But what I saw within it was she had started these sessions where you could have this session and she would bring women in and support them. And I said, wow, we really don't have anything like that in Detroit that's focused on everyone coming in. Women, Black women, Asian women, Indian women, Arabic women, Mexican women, you know, whoever, you know, where we all can come together no matter what field of expertise you're in, no matter what stage you're in your career. And I said, we really need to do something like that. And so literally, these are all examples of me seeing something that they're actually doing something, which did you still going. How many times you gonna do something about?
You gonna do something? The serial entrepreneur that your husband don't like. That's why you don't like the word, because you see something and you keep doing something.
I know, but I am really. This year the word is clarity.
Okay.
For me, that's my word for this year, clarity, and I'm really seeking for that in multiple areas, that both I will seek clarity but also receive clarity. And so Dream Studio Detroit has really been a clarifying thing, because as I was going along and building these things, I will be honest, I never knew that there would be a pinnacle at which they all would collide. This was not I didn't write this before when I started, like, oh, I'm gonna start Kids Kingdom, and then DWLN was first. I'll start this and that, and then one day it's all gonna be together.
Right.
No, this is like a point of clarity of like, I knew I wasn't crazy because I was starting all of these things, but now they all can live and breathe in one space and have a focused purpose. So you, as a woman, you working on your business, you connecting, you getting grants, because we give out grants. And then now you say, oh, I need childcare. Your child can be downstairs, or my child needs summer camp, or I want to be with more like-minded entrepreneurs and connect with these resources. But also the biggest thing was like, I have something that a lot of people do not have, but they can get it. And my mantra is, my only gift is doing.
Okay.
So like many people have all of these ideas and visions, but I actually do, as much as it's a challenge, I know how to bring my dreams and my ideas to pass. Right. And I have steps, I have a process, and I can walk other people through that. And people are constantly coming to me, asking me, because they see that these visions have come true. And they're like, how is she doing that? So they feel comfortable because I'm an everyday person.
Right.
They feel comfortable coming to me saying, how did you do that? Can you
what's
show
up.
me how? So
I
that's
love
what
it.
the Dream Studio is about. We're going to show people how.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I was thinking about, as I hear you describe it, and I'm, fortunate enough to like know you and a little bit about your journey, at least over the last couple of years, and I see you are a real person, a real person that's in a lot of spaces.
Yeah.
Right. One of my prayers, or my prayer about 8 years ago was just asking God to make sure that we had representation at the table that really wasn't compromised, that really cared for us, you know what I mean, and would really speak for us. I didn't expect to be one of the people that sit at the table, but as I think about you, some of the other folks that we're connected to, I'm really, really happy, and I feel like God answered that prayer. But sometimes it feels like in those spaces, and you and I serve on a committee together, sometimes it feels like in those spaces, there's a pressure to make some of the other partners that aren't as closely tied to our plight feel comfortable. And we had Carla Walker Miller earlier today, and for me, like she's one of the people that will say what needs to be said. It doesn't matter who's in the room. I've seen you do that at times. I also challenge you to make sure you're doing that at times. But I feel like, there's a outside pressure, and Ken's heard me say it, that thing where people try to shame us for being angry when there's something that we should be angry about.
That's right.
So like, we have this thing that we could call the angry black man or the angry black woman. So as you think about that, with all of that, is there something that upsets you or makes you angry? We want to create a space for you to express that here and hold no shame or embarrassment for being, angry, because when I say I am an angry black man all the time, but I'm also other things, right? I'm also hopeful, right?
That's
I'm also
not the balance of who you are.
That's it. You know what I mean? But I do give myself freedom to be angry when I should be angry.
And that's powerful, because I don't think a lot of Black folks have the freedom to do that. And I remember a time when I didn't have that freedom. Malikia Kenny is a mentor of mine, and he was one of the first people, without him even knowing, instilling that freedom within me. And even at a time when I was not yet able to exercise it. I remember when I was working at DPS, and I called him up because I met him when I was a grassroots community organizer at Warren County Development Coalition before I transitioned there. And I had never in my life saw a Black person at all, but a Black man stand up in a room in front of all white people and talk about racism and talk about systemic racism and how the people in the room, white people, they were part of the problem, and without any fear, without any hesitation, and with eloquence and with education, with facts and history. I remember sitting in rooms and being like, I cannot wait until I'm free. Like Malikia Kenny, where I'm not bought and owned by the establishment. And that's what keeps a lot of us down, because you got to come in here, you got to get your job, you got to take care of your kids. When I worked for DPS, I went up to I was sitting right there with Flanagan. He was the state superintendent, and they were saying things, and that's when God really started rising up that righteous indignation in me about getting angry and upset. And I was sitting there with those people, and they had all of these little figurines on the screen, and they were talking about how they were getting ready to change something again with the schools and push down these requirements and push down these tests. And I had righteous indignation, and I said something. I said, you know what? And it was not the place. I was on the state capitals with these people. I wasn't supposed to be saying this, but I was. But I was still a Detroit Public Schools representative. I was still bought. You know what I'm saying? And so I told them, I said, you know what? Every single one of those little figurines that you have up there is a representation of an actual child. And I said, I am one of those kids. I used to be the person that I'm telling you, I said this. And guess what? Somebody went back and ran and told my boss, and she called herself saying something to me about it. And so that was when it started happening. It's like, no, you're not. If you want me at the table, I'm coming to the table to say what needs to be said, because this is a problem. I'm not going to sit in this room with you and all of these white people and the Black folks that's in there too. But we were the minority, and you're going to sit there and use these cold words and these terms and talk about us like that right in front of our faces. And I'm supposed to just sit here like a professional and be like, oh, well, what I think we should do is no. You're not gonna sit here and talk to us like that. And y'all go ahead on with your meeting. Okay? And so we deserve that right, but a lot of times we don't have the freedom. So I called Malikia Kenny too after that incident. I just was talking to him like, how are you able to, walk in your freedom and your space? And that was it. And I knew until I was like out there, and entrepreneurship for me was really about that. I need my own sphere of influence. I need my own platform where I can say what needs to be said. Can't know who gonna check me.
Right.
Who gonna fire me? I mean, technically, right? Those things can happen. But if I'm building something and I have something of my own, it gives you more power. It gives you more freedom. And yes, I'm angry about things. I'm angry that I'm and I cannot say what I want to say right now. I'm not fully free in that area.
You still got to politic a little bit.
Yeah, I do. I got some state funding with Degree Forward.
We should go to a commercial.
Let's go to a commercial break.
I'll say it.
Here's what I can say. I am angry that white men are still the chosen folks for the funding that is disseminated from every area of our funding community. They are going to be the first ones who can go and walk up to you, ask you for the money, get it. Their plans, their paperwork, nothing is going to be as established or as beautiful as how we putting it together. I'm telling you, this deck that I have is bomb. This logic model that I have is bomb. And I've been talking to people for over a year trying to get this money, and it's coming through. But I have sat there and watched people just go and have one conversation, and they give them $1 million. They give them $500,000. They give them $300,000 off of a dream and not something we're going to do this. I was told you have to be out here doing the work. I've been out here doing the work. The same people that's been telling me for years, that's all I've been doing is using my own money, doing the work. Now what? What y'all still waiting on to give me the money? I am upset about that. I have righteous indignation about that.
So that's a piece that I call relationship and racism, right? So, and it's like I could be called a hypocrite, like for affirming what you just said, because we do get large sums of money from organizations that and foundations that write big checks. But I think that there's two things that happen, right? Like, and I used to put everything in the racism category and just be like, it's just racist. You know what I mean? But what I realize is sometimes it's lack of relationship, and it takes time to build relationships. And sometimes you're going to connect with a black woman that has your experience faster than you would a white male, white woman, black male. You know what I mean? So that's going to accelerate that relationship. And I think that they benefit from that. So you have a couple problems that's still there. In a place that's as black as Detroit, all the purse strings and the decisions are still held by white men. So not just the white men that are coming to look to receive the funds, but you have the white men that are controlling the pot, right? So therefore, white men are going to get that accelerated advantage of developing a relationship faster. And some of these systems and people are still just racist.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I'm not going to pretend that isn't the case and that's not there. But we have to figure out how, and that's the reason that we birthed Black Leads Detroit, right? Because we realized there had to be a pot where we didn't have to go through that. You know what I mean? A lot of times when I'm looking to get funding from an organization that has a white man at the top, I bring my friends that are white men. And they sit in on the meeting and they endorse, and now they're more likely to look at my proposal, the deck, and all that.
I wanted to
in the same way that they would if it was them and them endorsing it.
I know what you're saying.
It needs to stop. I feel it's still the whole thinking of white is right, right?
That's right. I want it to stop.
And I feel that we're moving a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you think about that, I worked for an organization a while ago, and we had a equity and access fund. Equity and access makes a whole lot of sense. Equity and access.
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Sounds real good.
Sounds real good. They give all the money to white ran organizations, like big white ran organizations too, not like people they had already given money to. And so I'm sitting there like questioning.
That's probably doing work in black communities.
And that's what it was. And that was the definition, said where they're providing equity and access to their community.
We can't give it straight to them black folks.
Right. And
right.
that's what I'm like.
We can't
They
get
don't.
straight
They
to
don't
them.
know what to
And
do
I
with
challenged
this.
him, and I'm like, how
That's
does
it.
that make sense to
That's
y'all?
They,
Like you started.
they're not
equity.
prepared. They're not
Exactly.
prepared to handle this.
Yeah.
These type of
They
resources.
can handle it. We'll give it to the white organization because
Yeah.
they know how to do it.
Yeah.
No, they don't know how to do it. They just been fortunate enough
They have
to
access.
get a whole bunch
Yeah.
of money.
That's right.
To where they can hire a whole bunch of people to pretend they know how to do
Yeah.
it.
And hire
But this
black
organization-
people to
Hire
be
black
on the
people that
front
really understand
lines
it,
of
really
it.
understand
Yep.
yeah.
And to give it out. And so we need more black folks in position of power, and that's the other shift, right? So I have had, these relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I've been playing in both worlds for a long time. I know the white folks, I know the black folks, I know the Indian folks, I know whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now that we actually have black folks more than ever in
sure.
positions of power who
That are
have
real.
the money,
And they real.
who are real,
Yeah. Yeah.
because some of these people weren't real. They were bought and paid for.
Oh, yeah. I know a
Okay.
few. Yeah.
And so if you're in that position now, we got real people, real relationships. Now the dissemination of the funds will become more easy. And guess what? It will become easier, because that's not proper English. It will become easier. And that access will become real. And also now we can have our own nepotism.
Yeah.
I don't care what calling that. They've had nepotism all of this time.
Yeah.
Right.
They've been given to their friends and given to their cousins, and this has been the same little cycle and circle, given to their children, putting their children in positions of power where they know they have access to the funding. Yep. Well, I know Ken, I know DeJuan. I'm not gonna call out other people because I don't know how they feel, but I know who's running these different places, and they're black, and I have access.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in addition to, right, getting us in positions within those institutions and organizations, it's creating more.
That's
right.
right.
So like, instead of getting mad, it's like, look, just create one.
Create.
You know what I mean? And that's what we're trying to do at Black Leads Detroit, right?
Yes,
It's
you
like
are.
we have a desire to have raise $52 million a year at Black Leads
Yes,
Detroit.
yes.
Right. So when we get to that point, we're not going to have to worry about who's doing what with what. Like, we'll be able to lead the way and demonstrate and model for others to look at and say, this is what like equity in action really
right.
looks like.
Yeah.
You know what
and
I
we
mean?
don't have to play the politics either,
You
right?
don't.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
what when you were talking earlier, I was in a meeting the other day, and a lot of the black leaders got together, and we were just talking about one of the things that's holding us back in regards to racial equity is that in these spaces, some black folks feel they still got a politic. Like you said earlier, I'm bought, right? So I got a house, I got a family, I got all this. I can't go in the room saying what I really want to say because I have to protect that, right? And until you're willing to lose that, I don't think you're willing to actually take that step out to do what really needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah,
you're
and
really willing to lose
the
that.
power
right?
on what you just said about the willingness to lose it. You might not lose
You
your
might
job.
not.
You
You
might
might
not.
not.
But until you have enough freedom
There you go.
to use that platform for that, you're going to be stuck.
Yeah.
You're going to be stuck.
Sometimes it's the intent and the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, Ken know me. I'm going to say what I want to say, no matter if it's going to cost us something, right? I don't care, because freedom is more important to me than my job, lights on, any of that kind of stuff, right? Like, my
can't
family
get in trouble
know
with
we
your
gonna
wife.
walk. No, she know we gonna walk.
just-
She know we got.
He be getting in trouble with it.
But we gonna walk in freedom
Yeah,
and
we gonna-
liberty,
yeah,
and
and
my
liberty.
children gonna
Yeah,
do that
'cause
too,
yeah.
and my wife's gonna do it. You know what I mean?
Because you're only going to love this version of me.
Yeah,
You're not going to
yeah.
like the version of me where I got to bow down every day.
But see, I don't have
Yeah.
those nights where I get home and be like, I wish I would have said this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I never
Wow.
have those.
That's right.
Because I always say what I want to say in that space. The thing is, I'm not saying it to demonize or destroy anybody.
right.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when you have to say something, you're correcting ignorance.
Yeah.
And not hatred. Now, if it's somebody coming from a hateful spot, then I'm dealing with that directly, aggressively,
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
real certain kind of way with my head to the side. Like,
you got willful
you know what I mean?
ignorance, you
But
got
then if you have somebody that's
unconscious bias.
Right.
yeah,
bias.
you know. But when it's an opportunity to educate somebody and build a bridge, right? It's just that you're building the bridge on like real truth.
That's right.
And not that somebody else gets to bring their whole version of themselves and I'm bringing a half version of DeJuan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
bringing all of DeJuan into this space. And if I'm going to be made to feel uncomfortable, we're all going to be uncomfortable.
Right.
That's my model.
Yeah. And
right?
honestly, I invite you to bring your whole version of yourself too.
I want you to.
Right.
I want you
that's
to.
the only way we can have movement.
Exactly.
If both people.
Let's
bring the
work
full
with each
version
other
of
for real.
themselves.
And what I typically do is a practice I call putting somebody's perspective in the corner versus putting the person in the corner, right? So if you say or do something that is hurtful or offensive to me, then I'm gonna say, hey, Ken, here's what you said, right? Or here's what you did. Here's how I hear that, and here's how that makes me feel, right? So I'm holding you on the back, you know what I mean, gently, and saying, look, as opposed to saying, putting you in the corner and saying, why you do this, why you do that, because now you have to defend yourself. And a lot of times that's received better,
That's right.
but we're going to deal with it in real time, you know what I mean? And I find it to be effective. Like, I hate being in spaces where I done seen strong black folk in there and I say something and it's the white people's first time hearing it. And I'm like, I talk to these black folk.
Yeah,
when y'all ain't around, they say the same thing.
Yeah.
Why ain't nobody said this before me?
Yeah.
Because
You know what I
people
mean?
struggle. I mean, I had someone reach out to me just this week. It's so crazy what they were saying. They're the only black person, in the school district they work in, and they're just fed up. And they're hearing people use these code words, do these different things, and they just don't know what to do. Yeah. And so I think people want to be free. They want to figure out a way to do it. And I also explain that there is a professional way, and even, this person I was talking to is a Christian as well, in a godly way as well, that you can do that and not actually come off wrong. Because then when you come out all wrong and you offend them, now you apologizing, but they put you in a place where they think you were wrong. No, you were still wrong. I was wrong for how I came at you, but make no mistake, you still wrong.
Right. Be clear on that.
No doubt.
Yeah, so it takes some, hey, if we need to do the training of freeing our people up.
That's it.
Those are the kind of trainings we want to have at Dream Studio
I'm
Detroit.
for that.
We want to have Black Leaders Detroit. We want to have people like us who are free, because that's how I knew I could get free.
Yeah.
I saw Malik.
Love it.
I saw him free, and I'm like, I got to get there. I have to be free. Some people ain't never seen no one free at a table. I mean, like, literally, this is the parallel to slavery. This is the parallel. When they saw us, can you imagine? I mean, I don't know what the movies
and it hasn't stopped him. He over there building a $20 million facility.
Yeah,
Right.
When they saw free, how
it's like,
free black people
yeah.
Right.
and they were still
Let
in
me get a
slavery,
taste of that.
and they saw it, and
Let me
get
a taste of that.
Oh,
Yeah, I got to experience that.
yes.
I have to experience that.
That's right.
Yeah, well, we get the signals, production team, that it's time to wrap up to the end. Ken, you got to finish a final word?
I do, because I need to make something clear, because I heard you say that tool, you put someone perspective in the corner of another person and use me as an example. I've seen you do that with other people. You ain't never done that with me. But you use me as the example. So if you're gonna use me as an example, you need to do it with me.
Well,
let me just.
We still praying for you, Ken.
If you're gonna use me as an example, you need to do it with me.
We are praying for Ken.
That's because we have love and respect already established. So I don't have the I don't have the burden of having. I don't have the burden of having.
Because he knows who you are as a person.
You already know. You know I love you. You know I respect you. You know what I mean? So like, I don't have to explain all that.
So just throw me in the corner.
Yeah. Plus,
no benefit of the doubt. There's no, because that,
and it's not like you do it to me anyway.
You don't need. You know what's up.
Exactly.
You know what's going on with kids.
Exactly.
No, this was great, and the prayer breakfast was amazing. Keep up the great work. I can't wait for us to do that again, because we got to have that combination of spiritual and natural action. That what you guys have for us today, from faith to works.
No doubt.
Our people got to know how to work this thing and not just have the faith and make it actionable.
No doubt. Appreciate that. Danielle, it's always great. Always a pleasure talking to you. Keep being great. Appreciate you. That's a wrap. So speak for yourself. Y'all have heard it from Danielle North herself. Be sure to tune in, subscribe, and check us out on all platforms. BL Detroit, Black Leaders Detroit. We love you. Donate $1 a week to create equal access to capital for Black entrepreneurs. Peace.